Good morning, everyone. I'm Susan Demas, the executive editor here at Lincoln Square. And joining me, as always, on Tuesday mornings is Edwin Eisendrath, and he hosts the show on Lincoln Square on Fridays. It's The Democracy Stupid. And that is also the title of his Substack, which you should definitely subscribe to. And Edwin also hosts a radio show on Heartland Signal in Chicago. So he's very busy, and he's right there in the city right now. It looks lovely. Thanks for being here, Edwin.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I apologize for any of the ambient noise outside in Chicago right now, but this is where I had to be to do this call.
It's always busy in the city. You have some new visitors, which we should just probably kick off and talk about. ICE has really become far more aggressive, especially in Chicago. And I know that you're right there. You're seeing the reporting. At the same time, I know the Chicago Marathon, has been going on. And so talk to me about what things are like in the city.
Well, could you go back to that image 1 second? Because it's worth talking about. Those images make the city look like a war zone, and they
Right.
are they're made on purpose. Okay, there is no reason for that gas to be there. None, zero. Right? They're not putting it out there to subdue a population. They're putting it out there because they want those images. In
Right.
fact, that is not the reality in Chicago. Um, uh, Now it's true that ICE is here and ICE is acting that way. I don't mean to say that that's not a real thing. That is definitely a real thing, but it's happening, in sporadic places. They've arrested, we think, about 1,000 people. We think 10 of them have criminal records. Just 10 of the 1,000, right? They are clearly acting like untrained thugs who are overarmed and who are out there to create these videos. Chicago's not a war zone. We are not at war. There's no uprising. There's zero cause for sending in even more troops. A sane president would de-escalate rather than increasing this attack on the people of Chicago. But I'll tell you what, I think Chicago is going to be his Waterloo, this little emperor, because the people in this city have been awesome. And I mean, I may have said this before, but I'll say it again. Look, I just felt the urge when I walked my dog at school closing time to go over to the school in my neighborhood just to make sure the kids do what I can to see that the kids are okay getting home because of ICE, right? What did I find when I got to school? 50 other adults who don't have kids in the school all went over there to do the same thing. And so I asked around, and that's happening all over the city. And then I asked around, and people are delivering food to the homes of people who are afraid to go out. And you've seen images of people who are actually out there confronting ICE and trying to chase them away. So all of this is Chicago saying, this is not, you know what, we have different values and we are going to stand up for them. And I just think it's their Waterloo, because the country sees these images, Susan, and they hate them. By the way, the marathon, you mentioned the marathon. Oh my God, it was beautiful. The weather was perfect. We had 50,000 runners. And one of them was my sister-in-law, who's actually, not of running age. She's like closer to my age and miraculously runs these marathons. But so we follow around to cheer, which meant you go through the different neighborhoods. Pilsen, which is a immigrant neighborhood, it was fabulous. The bands were out. There was a mariachi band, and people had signs like "Run faster, ICE is coming." People were making fun of these guys everywhere. There was massive solidarity, massive, thank you for coming to this neighborhood. Thank you for being part of what we're doing. Same in Chinatown, slightly different feel, but I mean, in all of our sort of differences in this city, and this is a divided, segregated city, people are crossing those traditional lines to help each other. And that is an amazing and wonderful thing. So, I think Napoleon's met his Waterloo here. This will be it for him, because the country's seeing how horrible he is, how horrible these attacks are, what they're doing to people, the opportunities they're stealing from, and not just from immigrants they want to arrest, but from their American children who are afraid for their parents, who now can't do the things that they would normally do in their lives, because instead they have to take care of parents who can't go out of their house. I mean, it's really a horror show on the part of Trump. Um, but it's a beautiful opposition that we have here.
Yeah. And that's the Chicago that I know and I love and I grew up around. And that's the antithesis of what Trump has been trying to build since he's been in office, for the second time, is division and fear and us not trusting anybody else. You can't trust your neighbors. And all of this that we're seeing in opposition to ICE is really important. And I think that it's also significant that you have a governor who's not afraid to back down. J.B. Pritzker has told Trump that, he is going to fight him every step of the way. He's doing that in court. He's also urging citizens to take it upon themselves to videotape and to witness anything that ICE is doing wrong. And leadership is important in these times. I was really struck by, you talking about trying to fight these thugs, with a different way. And in Portland, because Portland is weird and they have their own, culture there, which is, really eclectic and interesting. And anybody who, came of age in the 90s like I did, great music scene. But they have just hordes of people dressed up in ridiculous costumes like it's
Yep.
Halloween,
Yep.
frogs and the Pillsbury Doughboy and Batman and the chicken guy who, has made national news, just showing the absurdity of what they're doing and that they won't break people and they'll actually bring them together.
Yeah. Well, it's happening in Portland. It's happening here. I mean, and you talked about leadership, and I want to say JB's been great, but up and down. I mean, a local state rep chased off some ICE people the other day here. A local alderman was running behind them with an air horn, letting everybody know and chasing them off so they couldn't do their stuff. I mean, this has brought out the best in not just our elected leadership, but our civic leadership. And it's made leaders out of ordinary people who never thought they would step up into this. They have. So it's been a you think to yourselves, what made those guys like grab their muskets and say, we're Minutemen and we are going to get to Concord and we're going to be prepared for the British, the big, powerful British army that's coming, right? And I'm seeing it happen like on the streets in Chicago, where ordinary people saying, I know they're powerful. The big federal government is coming. They're in their camo. They got their tear gas, but we're going to stand up. We're going to get there ahead of them. We're going to protect their people. It's an old American story, and it's happening on our streets, and it's a beautiful thing.
Well, it happened 250 years ago. We're coming up on that anniversary for our country next year. And, this is the time for us to take our country back, take our democracy back. And one of the key events, I hope, will be this Saturday with the No Kings protests that are taking place all across the country. And it's not just in big cities like Chicago or LA or Detroit. I mean, I have seen in Michigan, little red towns. They actually had dozens of people show up over the summer.
Yep.
And that's what we need, a nationwide movement. Edwin, tell us what you think Chicago's protest is going to look like.
Oh, it'll be awesome. It'll be awesome. But right now, my wife is in downstate Illinois, right? Because her family comes from the tiniest little farming community on the Indiana-Illinois border where, if you stand on the roof and you look one way, you see the Rockies, and you look the other way, you see the Appalachians because it's flat and there's nothing there but farmland.
Right.
And you know what? They're going to organize there too. I mean, this No Kings rally is happening in little farm towns and and on the sides of streets where there aren't towns. I mean, on county roads. This is an across America gathering. And it's really interesting because, you're going to get 18, 20 million Americans to come out for something. And normally when that's like going to happen, you would see it be in the news everywhere, right? But
Right.
I don't know. I don't see it in the New York Times. I don't see it on CBS News. I don't see the anticipation for this anywhere. Right. But, if Donald Trump says he's going to go talk to a union worker in Detroit, even though it's a lie, he gets 6 days of free press. Right. So this great gathering, one of the biggest gatherings of America, maybe the biggest gathering of Americans in our history, is getting short shrift from a corporate media that's afraid of Donald Trump before it even happens. And the only times it does get mentioned in the media is when a Republican says something bad about it. In fact, it's, the Speaker of the House said, oh, it's a pro-Hamas, Antifa, hate America rally. Well, no, wrong. Sorry, not close, Mike. Nope, not even close. The last ones we went to were filled with love, filled with patriotism, all about taking care of each other and moving our country forward together, stuff that everybody should be proud of. But, they're afraid of it. They're terrified of it. And I just think, when we look at the ICE stormtroopers come to Chicago in attempt to make us afraid, and it turns out we're standing up to them. I think Americans see that courage, and that's the kind of thing that breaks the back of these autocrats. They're just not the triumphant people they think they are, even though, like, Donald Trump now wants to build like the Arc de Triomphe right next to the Lincoln Memorial. He announced yesterday, like, we're going to, for the 250th anniversary, we're going to build a military arch right here because celebrate our war prowess.
We're also having
that's what our 250 years is about.
Right. And also an MMA fight, on the White House lawn, because that somehow symbolizes America. Yeah. I want to go back to what you were saying about the press ignoring this story. I want to give a little bit of an attaboy to the media, because our fearless Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, tried to cow the Pentagon press corps, and they have these rules where you need a chaperone, and basically, this guy who's had nothing but bad press because, he has a history of being a drunk misogynist and doesn't know what he's doing. But there was Signalgate, where he was texting war plans to the former editor of The Atlantic. And he does not want negative stories. Neither does Donald Trump. So they've been cracking down on the press. They want to have a pliant press corps just with a bunch of right-wing cronies. AP got kicked out of the White House press corps for not playing ball. I was heartened to see that major news outlets, like AP, even Newsmax, said no to these rules.
Yeah.
So that's great.
I agree with
but
I agree.
But
it's a bridge too far.
Have to. It is. But you can see why this administration thought that they could just, have state-run media in the Pentagon, which of course is a huge authoritarian red flag, because you have CBS and ABC that have paid $15 million to the president. You have Barry Weiss in charge of CBS News. Of course, they think that they can keep pushing the press.
Well, I mean, and they will push the press, and a lot of corporate media will ignore important stories and tell their stories. But this particular thing, Pete Hegseth gave them the memo. That is, I talked to a lot of sort of scholars about this, including Tom Nichols, who's been on your network a lot here, who say that these were the rules, the exact rules that are given to reporters in the Kremlin. They are the exact rules that are given to reporters, in Tiananmen Square. This is what they say. Look, you get to come in here and you get to report on what we tell you to report and nothing else. And so any journalist organization that did that would immediately lose all credibility, because it's just like, okay, well then you're on the federal payroll. You're working for the president. And so they couldn't say yes, and they didn't say yes. They said no. Thank goodness. I mean, you and I both hoped they would say no, but you never know until they did. And poor Pete Hegseth, now what's he going to do? These enterprising reporters are going to report the stories, and they don't have to report his spin. They don't have to go to his press conferences. They don't have to listen to him anymore. He said, forget it. We'll just report and I think what a great thing. I don't think anybody should go to the White House press conferences. I
No,
mean, why
the
just
best
report the
stories.
lies?
I can say as a journalist, and I've gone to my fair share of press briefings for governors and members of Congress and on and on. My best stories never came from those briefings. It's the work that you do when you're trying to uncover things and when you talk with people who are actually affected by policy, not when you're just sitting there and getting the same old spin, from whoever. It doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, but now
Stenography isn't journalism. Yeah.
Exactly. And what we've seen is during Democratic administrations, there are tons of, stories about how there aren't enough press conferences and where is Joe Biden and why won't he talk to us more? And then you see what happens under Trump, where he's just like, look, I just want, right-wing figures like Tim Pool to be in the press corps. No journalists need apply. And it's barely a blip on the radar.
Yeah, well, some of that's on us. I mean, we have to do what you and I are doing, which is continue to tell these stories and to say they can't be forgotten. This administration wants to end free press in America, and they
Right.
don't just want to do it. They took official government steps to do it. And that should be a bridge too far for every American. And I know in the polling, Americans say they don't like it. Okay, if you don't like it, you got to do something about it. And Americans say they don't like sending these thugs into our cities to confiscate people off the streets. Okay, if you don't like it, do something about it, right? And now I'm talking to you Republicans who voted for this guy. I don't care what your reasons were for voting for him. Now you've seen what it is. Welcome to our side. Come on. You don't want to do this. This isn't the America you want. Your prices are going up. Wait till you pay your electricity bill. I mean, good luck getting coffee that you can afford. This is chaos. And Susan, today there was warnings that the entire world economy is going to slow down for 2 years because of uncertainty around this man's tariff madness.
Right. He is destroying our economy, but we don't live in isolation. This affects the world economy. We have the strongest economy in the world. And when Donald Trump takes it upon himself to institute these ridiculous tariffs that he is obsessed with, that has an effect on everyone. And yes, look at this story. Happy holidays to everyone. Good luck buying toys for your kids this Christmas or Hanukkah, because we may be facing an additional 100% tariffs on goods from China. I mean, the iPhone is already ridiculously expensive. It's going to double in price.
Well, I mean, everything's going to double in price, but the economy, we have some bubbles in our economy. The AI bubble has attracted a lot of money, and all these things are purged. The crypto bubble. When you don't regulate the way these fabulously rich people push the economy, you run it into trouble. This is what happened, in the 1890s and in the 1930s. That's why we created the regulatory state to try and smooth this out, because the games those billionaires play, trillionaires play, affect all of us. So we want to protect ourselves. But Donald Trump got rid of all those protections, just got rid of them. Right.
Yeah. And anything to help consumers. We were trying to cancel satellite radio after they decided to sign that ridiculous deal with Megyn Kelly. And that is just, enough. I need to support this. It's just like with Spotify and Joe Rogan. But under Joe Biden's FCC, you could just do like 2 clicks and you could cancel. Took 45 minutes to do it. Ridiculous, because they don't care about consumers. All the rules are stacked in favor of billionaires and corporations.
That's correct. That is absolutely correct. And when you do that, history's been pretty clear. They lead you into chaos. They lead you into bubbles, and those bubbles burst. It was in the 90s it happened with the .com stuff, and look what happened in 2008, and everybody lost their homes. Millions of Americans lost their homes. This is just, we've learned these lessons and then we forget them. It happens, and then Democrats get elected and clean it up, and people go, oh, everything's great, right? I mean, this was George Bush's mess. Barack had to clean it up. Didn't put people in jail for it, which I think he should have, but the economy got cleaned up. Okay. Trump crashed the economy the first time, with the help of COVID, but it crashed. Joe Biden rebuilt it. Trump's going to crash it again with, all by himself now without a pandemic to do it. Although God knows with Kennedy there, we could have another pandemic.
Oh, right. So, he wouldn't know how to fight it because, he just had another massive purge at the CDC.
Yeah. So this was really terrible. They have now, all the early warning capacity for pandemic stuff gone. All the science about what to do about it gone. You can't get help to states who need it, not there. And then they got such pushback over this. They tried to hire people back 2 hours after they sent the note to fire them. But it's chaos. They've destroyed one of the greatest scientific organizations in America that was, determined to be the first to notice and first to help us. I mean, these are the guys who first noticed AIDS in the world, and first reported on it. They really have been out in front of keeping America safe for a long time, but they don't want to keep America safe. They want to keep us, I don't know, entertained or bullied or whatever it is, but or so sick and tired and helpless we feel like we can't fight them. They just underestimate Americans, Susan, in every possible way. They do. They underestimate us. They think the farmers in America don't think. They think just fine. They're going to see what happened to them. They're going to see their soybeans rotting in the fields, and they're going to go, I don't care if you're cutting me a check for this. This was stupid,
Right. And we're seeing that there's a mass exodus of scientists. A lot of them are going to Europe or they're going to Asia. Meanwhile, when we have all of these attacks on our medicine and research, and especially vaccines coming from RFK Jr., who is the biggest conspiracy theorist, when it comes to these sort of things, ironically, our pharmaceutical industry is probably going to go to China, the country that Trump has tried to blame for COVID. They're going to have the keys to solving, the future pandemics and for fighting diseases like Alzheimer's and cancer. And that does not benefit us to have a nation that's hostile to us have that kind of technology when we had it right here and we pissed it away because we put a crazy man in charge of healthcare because he kissed up to Donald Trump well enough on the campaign trail.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all of those public health reasons. It's also a huge factor in the American economy. The fact that our pharmaceutical companies invent these new treatments, these are big American industries, and they're going to be hampered badly by these decisions.
Right.
So okay, growth in the world will be somewhere else, and we will. Somebody will say, well, America had a great century and it's time for the world to move on. And when they write the book, the only person to blame is Donald Trump and those incredible slugs in Congress who claim in secret to know better, but then vote for it anyway.
Right. And the federal government is shut down. Congress is not in session. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, wouldn't even call Congress back to try and make sure that the military was paid. He's that determined for Congress to just sit at home and take a paycheck, even though federal workers aren't receiving them.
Right. I mean, Democrats are in Washington and ready to meet and ready to pass budgets and ready to go to work. The Republicans are like, yeah, no. We're not like, take the money, go sit at home. We don't want you here. Why? Because we don't want to swear in that Democrat who has been waiting to be sworn in for now more than a month from Arizona, right? Who won her election. And that's all about Jeffrey Epstein.
Exactly, because she is the 218th vote to get Thomas Massie's petition discharged so that we can see what's in the Epstein files. And Thomas Massie is an extremely conservative Republican from Kentucky. This is a bipartisan effort, and Mike Johnson is trying to quash it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's trying to quash it because he knows what's in it. And Donald Trump knows what's in it. And, and every day they can buy to like doctor the documents or erase what's in it. I mean, they gave 1,000 federal agents were tasked with identifying where Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. please. You know where he is in the
Yes.
Epstein files? Up to here in the Epstein files. That's where he is.
Right. And that's why he doesn't want to release any of it.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean,
And
fool us once, shame on us. Fool us twice. Yeah. Okay. He's not getting away with it a third time. You know, we know who this man is. The country has seen. I mean, look, Kamala Harris barely lost, you know, and that was in a time when we had high inflation and every incumbent in the world in that inflationary cycle lost their election. You know,
right.
this was no mandate for fascism in America. It was not.
Yeah.
But you know, Donald Trump and his henchmen, his Stephen Millers, just these despicable people, they just thought, oh, well, this is it. We've got the reins of power. We can do whatever we want. And you know, the
Right.
Supreme Court has not been helpful, but lower courts have done their job. Most of them, they've really done their job, and the American people are doing our job. And that No Kings rally, it's going to be wonderful. Not just big, but fun. Not just fun, but festive and celebratory, and full of examples of this great, big, diverse, interesting country. And I'm not just talking about diversity in the way Republicans think we talk about diversity. There are going to be people in those rallies who are conservative when it comes to things like taxes, you know, but they don't want this autocratic nonsense.
Right. Right. If you want our democracy back, it doesn't matter where you come from, who you voted for. Everybody is welcome. This is the fight, and we can fight about the other stuff later on.
Yep. Yep.
Before we go, I did want to talk a little bit more about the layoffs that we're starting to see in the federal government, and really disturbingly in the Department of Education, which, you know, the Trump administration has said they're disbanding. The next on the chopping block was, you know, the department that handles, you know, students who have disabilities. And, you know, a lot of parents out there really depend on your IEPs and on the federal government to make sure that their kids get the right education and the educational services. And, you know, when we talk about these huge layoffs that, you know, are impacting the Department of Education, this isn't just, you know, bureaucrats that you never see. These are the people who make sure that, you know, your kids get the funding and the services they need at school.
Once again, this was my Senator Paul Simon back in the day worked very hard to get Public Law 94-142 passed, and that created this obligation on the federal government's part to help make sure every American, despite whatever learning differences they have a chance to get a good public education. And it set forth a lot of things the government's supposed to do. Oh, and the president is supposed to take care to you know, to implement the laws of the United States. And that's not what he's doing here. He's taking care to erase the laws of the United States. With great impact on millions of families and the future of millions of children, children who have the chance to do great things in America if somebody would just love them enough to take care of them when they're little. But Donald Trump hates them. Oh my gosh, you're a little quirky. We don't want you to be seen. Hates them. I mean, and he's not alone. I mean, I remember vividly this image of Ron DeSantis, you know, treating children terribly because they didn't look like the ones he wanted to have stand behind him in a press conference. Shame on these people. They're just terrible people, Susan, and they're doing terrible damage, not just to the individual kids, but to all of America's future when they say this whole group of young people should be left out of America. Shame on them.
Right, right. And when you see RFK Jr.'s, you know, his platform about autism, this isn't the way that he talks about people who have autism is like they should be locked away. Like there's something horrible about it. Instead of, you know, this is just a different way that people think and that they function. And, you know, they shouldn't be shunned. This isn't the most horrible thing to happen to them. So you have to start blaming things like Tylenol.
Yeah,
And it goes along with Trump's overall education policy, not doing anything to meet kids where they are.
You know, I don't know what happened that allowed this strain of hate to get so deep into to take over the Republican Party and to become part of government. But you got, like, you know, a Fox News anchor saying, let's inject homeless people with lethal drugs and kill them all. And he didn't lose his
Right.
job. I mean, he apologized later, but he didn't lose his job for that. And now we're talking about taking the futures away from millions of children. And by the way, the present away from millions of parents who will have to, like, not work and do a lot of extra work to work around this. And this is, and he's doing it, and it's illegal. It's the law of the land to provide these services, and they are not doing it. So there's no, they have no high ground to stand on, none. They've dug a deep trench of hate, and they're you know, waist deep in it. And here's the thing, though,
and
we're not going there with them. We're not going there with them. Not happening.
Yeah.
I can see it on the streets of Chicago every day.
Yeah. And also,
I love the name of my city, but I think we may need to rename it Waterloo, because this is where his ships are going to sink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Edwin, one other topic that you brought up, of course, Trump was speaking before the Knesset because of, you know, the so-called peace deal between Hamas and Israel after a couple of years of war, and Gaza City being utterly leveled. But I thought it was fascinating that Trump took it upon himself to say, hey, well, you should let Bibi Netanyahu off for corruption because, you know, he's a kindred spirit. And, you know, by the way, I've gotten away with everything. So you guys solid Israel and make those choices go away as well.
Yeah, he also talked about Orban in that speech, who's also finally got a tough campaign. Yes. I mean, people are fighting back. You know, we've had 10 years or so of creeping autocracy around the world, and around the world, people are fighting back. I mean, in Israel, they've been out protesting for months, years. I'm so glad I don't know that there's peace there. I'm thrilled, however, that this hot war is taking a break. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that the hostages, the living ones, are back, that the bodies of the dead ones are being returned. That's been an enormous ordeal. I'm thrilled that the massacre in Gaza is over, and that the rebuilding can begin. I know that there's already been some shooting. You know, the ceasefire hasn't completely held. I hope it can. And to the extent that Trump was able to push Bibi to stop the slaughter, great. I'll give him all the credit in the world for that. But, you know, then they signed an agreement. Let's see, he did, and Qatar did, and Egypt did, and somebody else, I forget. But there were 4 countries. None of them was Israel. None of them was Palestine who signed that agreement. We don't know what's in that agreement. I assume it was to collect the spoils from redeveloping Gaza with or without the people who live there. You know, I mean, there is no
which is Trump's focus.
Right. If he's not going to have any humanity here for the people on the streets in my city, you can bet he has no humanity for people in Gaza. None. I mean, and he used that speech. He was in a foreign parliament, and he used that speech, a chunk of it, to talk about Joe Biden and Barack Obama and his personal grievances. That's just, that is petty and disgusting and beneath the dignity of a president of the United States. Even him, you know, it's just, yeah,
right.
Right. I mean, everybody, his enemies list was long.
Right. Everything is about him. And remember his big takeaway from when he rolled out the red carpet for Putin in Alaska to talk supposedly about peace with Ukraine. His big takeaway was Putin said I was robbed of the 2020 election because everything is all about him.
All about him.
But on Saturday, we're going to show him that everything is about our country and about taking it back, and that we don't like what he's doing.
You know, I mean, I think about this. You know, the Second Amendment's the shortest amendment in the Constitution, and yet they had to strike 13 words from it because it didn't work for them. And then we have this thing. It's on every dollar bill. It says "e pluribus unum," and they had to strike 2 of the 3 words from that. the e pluribus part, because they just want everybody to be like them. You know what? Forget it. E pluribus is going to have a comeback, and it's going to have a comeback on No King's Day. This is about us. Us.
Yeah.
It's our country.
Yeah.
It's not his country. I mean, he can be one of us if he
Yes.
wants, but it's not his piggy bank. He's gotten away with a lot. His hands in the till. You know, it's as corrupt as any administration. No, strike that. It is more corrupt than any administration in American history. They've lined their pockets. They've lined their friends' pockets. They want to create these oligarchs who owe everything to them to sort of supplement their power. It's Putin's model in Russia, and that is not us. So I'm out there with my neighbors and friends. We're protecting each other, and we will not go down. We won't do it.
And when we come back next week, Edwin will let you know what the protest was like in Chicago, No King's protest. I'm over here on the West Coast, so I'll let you know how it was in LA, which was the first city, of course, that Trump sent the troops to. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you and your protests across the country. Tag us, tag Lincoln Square on social media. We want to see what's going on in your neck of the woods. And we'll be looking to post those on our shows and in articles as well. So Edwin, thank you for being here as always. And I'll look forward to talking with you on Tuesday. And of course, don't miss Edwin's show at 1 p.m. Eastern every Friday. It's the Democracy Stupid, and it's right here in Lincoln Square.
Great to be with you, Susan.
Thank you.